Welcome to Inside Games, the only game news show brave enough to play Crimson Desert an entire month, I think, before the game's release. I was able to sit down and play about 4 hours of it once.
Yeah, this is a really interesting game. It certainly, I think, captured a lot of people's imaginations. But for me, I don't know. I have seen this happen before, which is to say specifically people responding to a game in a particular way. So with a couple of clips, it seems like this is a game that you could do anything, right? This is the Todd Howard dream potentially come true. And the worrisome thing is that, yeah, when players hear that, their imaginations run away from them. Maybe expectations get built up a little too high. And then we get the game finally, and it does some of that stuff, but also it's kind of broken and buggy and weird. And there may not actually be much of a game there, just a bunch of, like, fuck around mechanics. So Bruce, what is this game? Is there a game here? And if so, what is it? Or is it just a giant world that you can kind of dick around in and a bunch of weird stuff happens?
Man, oh man, it is really like you say, it's like everything to everybody. You go in and it's just gameplay mechanic on top of gameplay mechanic on top of game. It's just mechanic on top of mechanic on top of mechanic. Now you're like, that sounds awesome for an open world game. And it is. There's lots of fun to be had. It's a beautiful game. We'll get into all the details. I'm just sort of doing an overarching summary first. It's a beautiful game to play and look at. It feels like you can do almost anything, and you can, but there are lots of caveats to that. And what I mean is, the game only tells you how to do certain things at certain times, and there's other times that the game's like, do this thing, and you're like, how do I do it? And it never tells you. So then you have to walk up and like start waiting for prompts to like pop up on the thing and be like, is it going to prompt me? And then sometimes it will, other times it won't. Other times I was playing the game and it was like, they're like, use fire to burn away a vine or whatever. And I'd be like, great, fire it. Didn't burn away the vine. And I had to call a developer over and be like, what happened? And they're like, that's bugged. And I was like, okay, all right, so I restart the save, which by the way, this is totally normal for an open world game. But then it's this weird combination of like, sometimes the mechanic works and sometimes I didn't know where to look. Sometimes I was an idiot. Sometimes the game was broken. So there's all these weird things that happened when I played it. That said though, once you just get into the open world exploration of it, running through side quests, running through the main quest, you really do have a great time. I had a blast doing that.
Okay, so yeah, just at a glance, it feels like it's maybe on a grand enough scale. It seems to have maybe a Zelda sort of format where you're in a big open world. You got quests that kind of direct you where to go and what to do, but you know, you can go any direction, you can climb anything. And I guess the idea is that as you're following sort of these signposted quests, get into hijinks, you find caves full of loot, you accidentally burn down a village. Like what are some of the side activities that you found yourself doing? How outside the path of the game's intended flow do you feel like you got? And did the game ever surprise you with its simulation? Like, did NPCs ever do anything weird? Did the game respond to your actions?
So the first 3 hours is tutorial, and you've nailed it. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. They are almost doing it beat for beat in terms of the tutorial. But Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom does such a great job of teaching you in the world. So you're kind of walking through, and the game will be like, this is how you do this one little thing. And you're like, great. In Crimson Desert, it throws everything at you all at once. So you're like, you can, reflect light with your sword, and then you got to move this little thing over here, and you got to use this power to do this. And there's like 1,000 things it hits you with. And again, sometimes they work. Sometimes I was trying to figure out what to do because I was like, this is not a hard puzzle. My best example is when I was going through, I had you click through to like this one area where you're sort of walking through these temples, and then outside, it's like, use this magical grappling hook to move a piece. And like, you can use this grappling hook to do kind of what you want. You can rotate things or move pieces around. And then it drops you in the middle of this puzzle, and it's like, it doesn't tell you what to do. So you're just like staring at this puzzle that could be nothing or everything. And you're like, all right, do I move this square over here? Sometimes it'll give you a silhouette of a guy doing like a special attack that's like this thrust palm. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, so do I have to move this thing over there? So I moved the thing over there. It wouldn't snap in. So I'd be like, what? Did I do it wrong? So then I'd move it somewhere else and it wouldn't snap in. And I was like, what? It's just, there's only like a couple of places this should go. And then finally, I moved it over to the same place. I literally just went in a circle a couple of times. Finally, the game registered that it was there, and I was like, okay, so my instincts were correct. And then it's like, now use this power. I was like, I've never seen this, or it doesn't have a message on how to do the power. And so I had to call a developer over, and the developer's like, oh, you got to do this thing. And they're like, then they press the button. I was like, wait, hold on. What button did you press? And they're like, oh, it's this. And I was like, okay, great. So just in the first 30 minutes, 45 minutes, the tutorial is very confusing. I don't know if they're going to fix this for launch. And I don't want you to think that this is taking away from the game, but I do think there's a pretty severe barrier to entry for people that if they buy this game and they don't get through the first three hours or so, they're going to immediately turn it off and be like, I don't even know what this was. Because there's so much magic to the open world once you get through all those like tutorials that seemingly explain nothing and everything.
That is one of the, I think, the silent brilliances of Zelda, or the recent Zeldas. And in a way, Portal, Valve's Portal 2 did this way before Zelda. But every time you come into a puzzle room, the puzzle demonstrates its nature to you as you see it. And it sounds like this game doesn't really do that. And in fact, it seems like it's relying on a much more blunt method of like tutorialization that itself seems kind of broken and misguided. So when you're in your tutorials and kind of getting misled and stuff, you don't see any glimmers of the open world experience in that process that would kind of breadcrumb you through. You think people are just going to play it and get frustrated at the tutorial and give up? Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, it depends, right? If this is something that they spent $70 on, hopefully they'll just power through, and they're going to like look up a walkthrough here and there. But I can almost guarantee, because I was like, am I a stupid idiot? Like I was like over it because I was playing in a room of like 50 other people that were playing around the same spots that I was in the game. And I was like, I must be a fucking idiot. Like, I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I looked around and everybody else was having exactly the same problem. There will be a few journalists out there, I promise you. They're like, I nailed it. It was perfect every time. But generally speaking, probably when people are streaming this on Twitch, you're going to see a lot of this. It's going to be people confused, and not because the puzzles are hard, but just because it doesn't tell you how even to start. So ideally, we'll pass on that knowledge to a bunch of other people, and then eventually no one will have trouble with this, and you can just get through it in an hour. But let me tell you, looking at this with fresh eyes, I was like, I got nothing. And occasionally, I'd have to look at other screens to be like, how did you do this? And somebody helped me out, and they were like, it sort of worked. And then some of the time, it didn't work, and I had to reload the save, and then it would work. But I never would have known. I never would have known otherwise. So that's why I was like really, really struggling. And I know this seems like a lot to like talk about when it comes to the tutorial of Crimson Desert. But the problem is that all these mechanics that you're learning, you will then apply later on in the game. And you need them because it's an amazing video game that you can do almost anything. But you need to know how to do these things and when to do those things. Yeah,
I wanted to ask about once you get over that hump, because it almost feels like, in a way, that is weirdly appealing, I think, to some players, especially when the game's simulation is robust enough to celebrate or actually incorporate all of those weird mechanics. You know, like people have accepted that a Soulsborne is not going to tutorialize you on most of the things you need to know. So once you maybe get over that hump or past it, there is this, is there basically just like a beautiful garden of video game? I'm, watching some of this gameplay, and it really does look like, at least what I'm looking at right now, it looks like a next-gen Tears of the Kingdom. You're walking around on these sky islands solving puzzles. Everything looks phenomenal. The world is laid out under you. You can see like ridiculous detail in the terrain and the trees and stuff. I've seen clips of people like flying in formation with all these flying machines. So yeah, is it truly a go anywhere, do anything kind of game?
It absolutely is. So once you get through all that stuff, it's gorgeous. Like, I don't know, I was just reading a Digital Foundry article about Crimson Desert, and they were like shocked at how good the performance was and how amazing the game looked. And Digital Foundry, generally speaking, doesn't say that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're usually pretty harsh judges.
Yeah, they're generally very harsh, and it is true. This game was beautiful. I was playing in widescreen on some really beefy machines. I think they had 5090s. So it looked amazing, and it was so much fun to play. I feel like I never had frame drops. It felt like a very lived-in world, a very alive world, meaning like anywhere I looked, there was like a little town or like maybe a couple of people talking, and I'd walk up to them and they'd have a little side quest that I could listen to and eavesdrop and be like, cool. And then I'll, like and you're the chosen one. But every time it's like, go find my cat. That's one of the first things you do. And which is like, that's kind of tropey and fun. So I was like, oh, sure, I'll go find your cat. So I run up and, pick up his cat and bring it back. But you're going to have a bunch of Skyrim level bugs, but I don't think they're going to be funny. Some of them I had were pretty funny, but some of them were just like, why did it do that? Like, it was like occasional game breaking. And I was like, what? So then I'd like hit this wall. And that's the magic of a Skyrim, is that you never hit a wall. It's just like crazy shit happens over and over and over. And you're like, why did it break like that? Why is it broken? But the game never stops. When I played this game, there were a couple of times it stopped. It like literally would just slam into a wall. And it was either because the mechanic didn't work or I had to reload a save or something like that. So again, if you can get past those things, or if they fixed it, because this was a preview build, if they fixed it by launch, you really are going to have an amazing time walking around getting people's sheep and like, killing camps of bandits and like doing that sort of stuff. Because it really truly is. Those quests are very, they're all voiced and they sound amazing. And not to mention, again, the game is just beautiful. I love looking at it. It's going to be really fun to stream, and hopefully people will see how gorgeous it is.
Yeah, it sounds like the perfect intersection of a bunch of things that other developers aren't doing right now. Crazy production value, open world, loads and loads and loads of playable content. What's the structure of the game? It sounds like you just go wherever and you help people find their sheep, but is there some cumulative benefit to that? Is there experience? Do you level up? What do you get when you level up? Is there currency? And what's the overarching drive of the game? I assume there's like a main quest thread that will kind of direct you around the land, maybe taking you to areas that have higher level monsters that require higher level abilities to fight, et cetera, et cetera. Is that sort of the format we're looking at?
So when I say the game is everything, it truly is everything. So this is a very Eastern game dev game. So it's got all of the things you just said. It has the main quest line that you start on, and it's very tropey and, again, fun.
There's like an ancient evil, you're the chosen one, you've been anointed, but the good powers have been locked away. Do you have to go to temples and like fucking get 5 crests or something? What's the...
Not really. So like, I don't want to spoil too much, but the game starts out with basically you're a Greymane, which is like the Jedi of the world. And Greymanes are like really good at fighting, and they've got some cool magic or whatever. And then you die, and then you come back, and you don't know how you come back. So then the game, again, I'm telling you, I promise you, this game has everything. And then it's like you come back, and they describe multiversal, stuff that there's a reason you came back. It's because you're trying to bring all the worlds together to make sure chaos doesn't take over. And like, yeah, it's that kind of stuff.
Okay, all right.
And also you'll meet like, it's so funny because I'm talking about all this stuff that's so overarching, and then I'm watching me arm wrestle someone at a bar. Like it's like
perfect.
It truly is that. It is everything. So you'll meet other people along the way that are like, oh, there's a homeless man that everybody kicks and hates him, but you walk up and give him a coin. Well, it turns out he is the priest of the most important temple in all of the multiverse or whatever, right? It's so tropey, and I didn't hate it at all. I thought it was really fun to play. Because I kind of laughed. I was like, well, I know what this is, and then I was like, oh, that's cool. And then once you get to the temple, you slam into the tutorial, and you're like, ugh, get me out of here. So as soon as you finish that, they're like, you can fly now, and they're like, you jump off and you can fly. And I was like, whoa, cool. And as soon as you try to fly, you're like, it doesn't really work the way I want it to work. Dang it. And there are, like you said, there are skill trees. There's a million skill trees and a million skills. You're going to end up picking up loot, lots of loot along the way, meeting lots of other characters. So you can level up your weapons, but you can also level up your skills. There's this giant skill tree also has a bunch of magical skills in addition to fighting skills. So the actual combat of this game is incredibly in depth. You're going to be holding down all sorts of crazy buttons if you're playing on controller or mouse and keyboard. It's like hold right trigger and press X once, or hold left trigger and press right bumper hard. You're like, holy shit, trying to memorize all these different moves. So there's a lot of in-depth combat that maybe they were trying to make it sort of a Souls-like when you fight bosses. There's a couple of bosses you fight. It wasn't very hard for me. I didn't. I think maybe if you increase the difficulty, or maybe if you didn't have the right skills or something like that, you'd have a hard time with some of the bosses. But generally speaking, the combat is incredibly in-depth, and I think people will really enjoy that too. It worked very well. There are lots of really cool moves that you could get and learn, and I had fun trying to do that, but I eventually just settled on one. I would just mash right trigger over and over. I just mashed it. But as I played more, when you got into harder enemies, you had to start realizing, oh, like I need to use the bleed ability. I need to use the dodge ability. And, you know, like you had to start really understanding that in the first, again, 3 hours or so I played a bit. They also start throwing more and more enemies at you. So you end up like, you'll fight 5 enemies and then you'll fight 15 or 20. And then they just pile on. And then you have to actually start using all of your skills versus just a couple of skills.
Damn, okay. I'm a bit scared because it's every time the feedback is like, yes, you can do that. Or that it has every mechanic from every game all combined into one. Is there a downside to that? I guess the downside is that the game doesn't really properly tutorialize you about anything, or not yet anyway. But did it feel unfocused, or was everything you were doing in the game, did it feel purposeful and fun to you, even if it was your own decision? Like, I'm just going to go in this direction, but there were still caves and quests and like everything in every direction.
It's a really good question. So I think when the game wanted you to do something specific, so for example, there was a power that you learned that's like you can lift up something with magic. So you can lift up like a wall or lift up like a tree. You could kind of only do that skill when the game wanted you to do it. So there's a couple of like, so for example, if you walk up to this house that was on fire and they're like, well, there's somebody dying in there, you got to go get them. And there was a log falling over there. So then you would have to use your power to lift up the log and move it. But the little button prompt would only pop up when you walk up near a log, and then it was like, I was like, what do I, okay, I'll press a button, and then it would like sometimes work, sometimes it would raise up, sometimes it'd pop into your hands, sometimes I was like, well, and it's timed, so you're like in a rush, and you're like, did I do it right? Move it over, and then, you know, there's one time that I was like, okay, well, I'm moving the logs, and then I happened to walk out of the quest area, and it reset. It was like, the dude, your friend died. And I was like, what? Then it would reset. So there is that. There is there's a million abilities, and I don't think you can use every ability anytime you want. That said, is there direction to the main quest and the side quest? This is the most fun I had, which was walking up to different groups of people and listening to them talk, and then being like, oh, I can help you. And then you just ride your horse away and go, and they'd be like, oh, these bandits, they took over this village, and you go kill the bandits. Or like, oh, I lost my sheep. You know, this kid was crying about losing his sheep, so you go get a sheep. That is the most fun I had. And that felt very directed and very purposeful. And I think you could get lost in that sense of the word. Meaning, if you just went from side quest to side quest, you'd probably never even touch the main quest and just have fun going and helping out the world. And I did. I truly did. That's what I ended up doing the last hour and a half of the gameplay, is I just started I was like, I don't really want to even try to use any of these magical abilities or anything. I don't care. I'll just go check out what people are doing. And that's what happened. And I had a blast doing that.
Did it feel like the side quests would stay interesting? Because I feel like a lot of the side quests you're listing, which is like, go kill these guys or go bring me back my thing. Those are the most like fundamental. They can still be fun, don't get me wrong. But did you find like a spark of originality to these quests? You mentioned just like listening and talking to NPCs was entertaining. Was that because the writing is weird or the delivery is good? What gives this game its special sauce, apart from being like, you know, just a massive packed RPG?
Yeah, it's a great question. I really did think the voice acting and the writing were really interesting. Everything is really over the top. So when you meet a child who has lost their sheep, again, this sounds like, I know this is a thing you've seen 1,000 times, but the child's like kicking and screaming and crying and like super upset and yelling at people, and like, it's funny. It's a really funny, and you're like, and then your main character is this really gruff, low-voiced, stoic man. So it's
Yeah, you're Geralt.
Yeah.
Every knight errant in every game. Yeah.
And so it's a great juxtaposition, right? The crazy child who's screaming about losing their sheep, and you walk up and you're like, I'll fix it for you. And so that's funny. But then there's also some really in-depth side quests that I'm not sure that the side quest that I took, I think it was part of the main quest. I'm not sure. Either way, the side quest, what felt like a side quest, turns into this, multi-level quest that eventually you get to the very end of and have to fight a boss. And the boss is pretty hard. And like you have to basically like knock out, he's like the head of a mercenary guild, basically. And I end the gameplay on this fight. And it's a tough fight. It's a really, really tough fight. Bad news, Lawrence. Well, actually, no. Very good news for me. It glitched, and I had 0 health and was able to fight through the entire fight first try. Because it glitched. Now, the worst part about that is I looked over at other people that were fighting it, and other people were having a hell of a time because the attacks from the boss are really hard, and it's really hard to dodge and do all these. I didn't have that problem. So I was watching this other dude just die over and over and over and over, and I made it through first try, and I was like, I had a glitch. So that's the kind of thing that you'll probably expect when you're playing Crimson Desert, is that sometimes it's going to glitch for you in the wrong way, and sometimes it's going to glitch for you in the right way, which I don't mind. None of that bothers me. I think it's kind of fun. And again, it was a really cool reward to a very long quest, either main quest or side quest. I can't remember what it was, but it was a super fun reward to where you like walk into this camp of bad guys, and every bad guy's literally staring at you, and you're like, all right, well, here comes a big fight. So that was a cool payoff to maybe a 30-minute side quest.
That is very cool. Yeah, if you just like bespoke content, custom bosses, plot arcs that have their own like content payoff. It's how did they make this game? I guess it seems like it's a little too big in scope, and usually when that's the case, there's a catch. And the catch might be stability. It might be bugs. That's typically the Bethesda trade-off, right? Is that you have all these like subsystems, crafting and NPC interactions, but the trade-off is quests can bug out, or an important NPC might just fall off a mountain, and then that quest can't be resolved. Did you get that sense? Can you do that sort of thing in this game? Can you kill entire villages full of NPCs? Can you really muck with the traditional setup of the game?
I never tried to kill an NPC. It never felt like I could, but I never tried to do that, and maybe you can. I was more just following the path of if they told me to do something, I'd be like, yeah, I got it, and I would go and do it, and the enemies are very clearly marked on your mini map. They're all just little red diamonds, and you knew who to go after. But I never tried to kill somebody who wasn't hostile to me. I may have accidentally done it and then possibly just kind of bounced off of them, because I don't know that the game will allow that. I could be wrong. And to your question about this game seems really, really big and how did they do it all? I don't know. Either they spent a very long time and took a lot of lore from Black Desert Online, or there's AI involved. I don't know. I again will say that the voice acting, if it's AI, is fantastic. But the voice acting, if it's bespoke people who came into a booth and did it, and that's like thousands and thousands of hours of voice acting. Very similar to Baldur's Gate. So I really did feel like there was a lot of heart and character to it. So if they used AI, they really got me fooled. But generally speaking, it was really interesting and fun to play, and like you could really knock out an hour on just doing one side quest. You could just follow the side quest, and then like after an hour, you'd be like, oh wow, I only was doing one quest chain.
Man, it sounds like the kind of game that you can't really say no to if you're into this kind of game at all. Unless you get bucked off by bugs or bad tutorialization. From the sounds of it, it sounds like maybe an Elden Ring mixed with a Fable, where there's just a million mini games and sub activities that you can get lost doing. Was that basically your feeling playing it?
Yeah, exactly. So Elden Ring is a good example. It's not as hard as Elden Ring, but this game is locked off by skill level. So if you happen into another area, let's say just you happen to walk to the desert or whatever, the enemies are going to be way stronger, and you're probably not going to be able to fight your way through. I think Elden Ring is a good example of that, because there are times in Elden Ring that you'd walk up, meet a boss or a skill check or whatever, and be like, well, I can't win that. I got to turn around and go somewhere else. That's what this game, I think, is probably like. I only played 4 hours of it, so I don't actually know. But that, from the articles I've read, they're gating you. They're making sure you cannot go further unless you're some gaming god or something. Even then, it's probably going to be pretty tough. So it's not as easy as a Skyrim. It's not as easy. Like Skyrim, you can kind of like brute force your way through. Same with Fallout. This isn't that. But I think that's cool. And there was so much content to explore in this first area that I was in. It didn't matter. I was having a blast running around to the caves and to the mountains and trying to figure out, like, oh, who else has got stuff for me?
Yeah, this developer, I guess they've done a couple of expansions and ports of Black Desert Online, but that game came out in 2014, and this is their next game. So maybe they have just been grinding on this the whole way. It really does. It kind of reminds me of just spiritually, it reminds me a bit of Dragon's Dogma for Capcom. Total like labor of love, similar kind of game, even though it seems like Black Desert is taking that concept to the nth degree. Just a big, goofy fantasy open world where you can kind of craft your character and live whatever adventure you want. I don't know, Drews, do you think they have a hit on their hands? Are you excited to play more of it?
That's such a good question. I don't know. I really don't know how people will take this game. I think people, let's say streamers and YouTubers that decide they want to focus on this game, they're going to find, I want to say like hundreds of hours of content in this that people will never see. It's what it seems like to me. It really seems like there's just stuff that I could have walked right by and it would have been another hour of gameplay if I interacted with it, and then I didn't. So then I was just kind of moved on. That's so cool. Another way that people were describing this game was like, it's like an MMO, but with nobody else. So you're just walking around into hundreds of hours of content by yourself, and you can explore what you want when you want, and apart from the skill checks. And I think you'll have a blast. I don't know about a hit on its hand. I think it's going to be $70. But in terms of gameplay, there is for sure $70 worth of content here.
Yeah, no monthly subscription, no players killing you and taking your stuff. It sounds like the kind of game that I would have dreamt about when I was a kid. Infinite adventures, a billion abilities, bunch of weirdos to help out, and can you fish? I think you can. Pretty sure.
Yes, I'm pretty sure you can fit. I'm like, again, I'm telling you, there's everything in this game.
Well, I'm sold on it. This game does seem like my kind of thing. I mean, I like all games, but specifically, I like the idea that it's got that it's a bit goofy. I feel like some games take themselves a little too seriously. So yeah, that juxtaposition of you being a very taciturn knight errant who solves everyone's problems, and then the world is just populated by a bunch of self-interested weirdos that are always like hyper fixated on one very small unsolvable problem. I don't know. That's fun, and it's something that you can play for a very long time, and I certainly have.
Yeah, it's great. You've nailed it. That's exactly what it is. And I had a lot of fun once I got through all the gameplay mechanics. I really did have a lot of fun experiencing the content that they made. So I'm very curious to see what the internet thinks of this game now, because I have my own impressions, but I'm curious to see what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, or if it falls off once you get outside of the beginning area, who knows? Maybe they put all their glitzy stuff right at the beginning, and the rest is just stomping around finding 5 apples for somebody who wants apples.